Spyro, wanna know a secret? Use the action button when you want to zoom in and look around.
Oh, your secret's safe with me.
Hello, I'm Rob, you're with the Geek Show, and today I'm going to be talking about Spyro the Dragon Reignited, or Spyro Reignited, and it collects the first 3 games in the beloved series. And before I really get into my feelings on it, I have to give it a little bit of a personal history. Because, it's one thing, saying nostalgia is what motivates you to play this, and you love it because nostalgia. Because nostalgia can be blind at the best of times. We know that. But I didn't play this as a youngin. When I got a PlayStation back in 96, 97, that's like the launch year, I believe, if my history is right. I was really into it, games like Crash Bandicoot, Tekken, Ridge Racer, stuff like this. Spyro came a little bit later, and by that point, personally speaking, I was reading like games magazines. I discovered adult games. By adult, I mean stuff with black, brown, and dark grey colour palettes. So I didn't have time for sort of a bright purple and yellow dragon. And bit of a shame, really, because this is kind of fantastic. Yes, obviously there's been a lot of updating. Just look at it for starters. The graphics and the look of the thing is glorious. But I want to go back to what I was talking about there a little bit with my history of it, because I came after this was like a major thing, so I didn't really get into it. And that's a shame, really, because what Spyro is, it's not a particularly in-depth game in any way. I mean, I'm not expecting it to have like a really intelligent story or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, currently, games are in a position where they take themselves awfully seriously, and I think that's to the fault of not the fault so much as it's the games that are suffering by games being a very serious medium. All games right now have to be, I don't know, like, you want to talk about sort of like microtransactions, live action services, or just games which are like open world and you have to sink hundreds upon hundreds of hours in. And, when you get a certain age, like, or you've got kids or whatever, you don't want that sort of investment. You just want a game what you can put on and it's just a game. I know that sounds like an awfully obvious thing to say, I mean, but games aren't really just games anymore. Whereas Spyro harkens back to a era, whether it's like your Klonoas, whether it's your Crash Bandicoots, whether it's any of those classic mascot era PlayStation 1 games, where the whole point of them was just pure gameplay, and it did it in a really palpable, I think I've said that right, it's one of my catchwords, really easy to digest, let's just say it like that. And I think it's the time's right for it, really, because games media is a bit too poor-faced for its own good. Now, not playing this before, I didn't really know what to expect. I knew who Spyro was, but all it really is a collectathon. You are Spyro. In the first one, you go around and collect the dragons which the big bad has all turned into statuettes, because one dragon on TV basically said that the big bad is an idiot and he's not handsome at all, which kind of puts you in the headspace of this game. I mean, we're not talking sort of Ratchet and Clank style satire. The setup is just a prod to get you into the game and get you moving forward. And also, if you're going to compare this to what modern games have become, I mean, let's look at Assassin's Creed, and I know that is a very large jump as far as a comparison goes, but Assassin's Creed is a game which has been basically ruined by collectibles. It has a story and it has everything like that, but yeah, it's been ruined by collectibles. Spyro is pure collectibles, but it works for the game, I think, because it's not about collecting all the collectibles so you can get like the ultimate super ending. It's about collectibles, you know, just because it's about collectibles. And also, additionally, I think the more interesting aspect of that is it's a game which is just very easygoing. So if you want to 100% every level, which I'm not trying to do here, I'm just trying to run through the gameplay. But if you want 100% every level, you can. And it's just a matter of like wandering around. And the thing that makes that really nice to play is Spyro as a character is really a joy to control. I mean, if you go back to the original, we were at an era in which sort of like the early days of the 3D platformer. The 2D platformer had died with the passing of like the Mega Drive and the SNES or whatever it's called in your country. So it was early days for like the 3D character platformer, and they were having a hard time with it. I mean, yes, Super Mario 64 kind of cracked that nut, but very few other things got it. I don't know whether it's because he has 4 legs, Spyro, he just runs in a much more satisfying way, but just negotiating the world is like a real pleasure to do and get involved with. So yeah, the first one, you're collecting these dragons, you are saving the dragons. In the third one, which I think is, I know I've skipped the second one there, but I think it's important to talk about sort of the narrative of these games, especially when you talk about Spyro, because Spyro is the franchise that really could have been legendary. It really could have been all that, but I feel it came, I don't know if it was maybe at the wrong time, or maybe the developers weren't really all that open to what was possible with the concept. But eventually it became known as Skylanders. Spyro was just one of the Skylanders. Now, if you're of a certain age, or if you've been living under a rock, or whatever that might be, Skylanders was one of the earlier, or if not the earliest, platformers in which you had like a little plastic base and you collected the figurines, you put the figurine in the base and that figure would become a character in the game. I believe it also had a cartoon as well, and that was kind of like a death knell. It's like a death knell for any character, that really, isn't it? Where it becomes not so much merchandisable, because these, by the very nature of like a mascot game, it is perfect for merchandise. More in the sense that it's only really exists for merchandise. So that's, I guess that was a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of people, because Spyro was beloved. Otherwise it wouldn't be back here now in such a pure form. But again, I guess this is really the games world and the community and whatever reclaiming Spyro and reclaiming like it's almost become almost a lost classic, not in the great pantheon of lost games, but lost in the sense of it's forgotten what was really great about it. And confronting Dr. Shemp, it makes me think of Evil Dead. Maybe that's what they called Ted Raimi's character in Evil Dead. Detour, you know. But I think it's just a weird game, this. I mean, weird in the sense of any sort of, not specifically this. For one, it's weird because Spyro is very overpowered. Very few things stand a chance for him. I mean, there's a character whose towers over him, but one blast of the, I did that just to stress, you know, how you beat characters on a scov. But one blast of your fire, one headbutt with his horns, and pretty much everything's done. So he is overpowered, which again takes into consideration that it's child friendly, with its look. You don't want a child friendly game which is like super difficult and you've got to like, really clamour to do anything. more in the sense of its difficulty isn't in the combat, because, you know, I'm making a real bad timing out of that one. Its difficulty doesn't come from the combat, its difficulty comes from the 100% in it and the platforming, because I've not really highlighted it in this video, but gliding is an integral part of getting that 100%. You've got to really investigate the level, and there's certain bits where you've got to sort of glide and, well, just understand the lay of the land and perfectly time this sort of jumps and glides. So there's really a lot of sort of longevity to it, but yeah, I'm sorry, I've just got to sort of stress the fact that how gorgeous this game is. I know that was what they were talking about a lot when the Ratchet and Clank original remake, which wasn't anywhere near as successful as this, because this really is quite marvellous. But they were saying, oh, it looks like a Pixar game, Pixar movie, which this really does. It looks like they could just take this engine and make Spyro a cartoon, because it is just gorgeous. He's a handsome character, is Spyro, in a handsome game world, and true to all those old sort of classic era platformers. Every game world is completely different from the other, so it's always feeling fresh. It has bosses. This is what this is here. This is Dr. Shem. Make a bit of a mess out of this, because you get used to the bosses being a certain way, and this is very old school in the fact that you only have to hit him 3 times. But yeah, it's about sort of, I mean, a lot of the dragons that you've been seeing, and as well as want to open the video, give you gameplay hints. For example, some gameplay hints about sort of look, use the action button to look or zoom in, hold the jump button to glide, jump at the highest point and then hold the jump button to glide for the longest. Or some characters can only be beaten by headbutting them, some can be by fire, you know, stuff like that. And the boss is sort of an accumulation of learning the game mechanics, which is fine, which is cool. But yeah, let's talk about the dragons, because one of the things that I knew about the original was all those dragons are basically the same thing. You saved all those dragons, it was very vague collectible, they said something to you, moved on, they all looked exactly the same. Whereas some of the names are repeated quite heavily. The looks are pretty much different for each and every single one, especially in the first one, you know I'm talking about here. In the third one, they trade in the dragons for baby dragons, well, eggs that turn into baby dragons, and that kind of plays into the whole turning my Spyro into a reason for merchandise, because number 3, although again it's one of these beloved games, it is just so incredibly heavy with the mascots. That's kind of suffocating really, and that game kind of came around the time of, well, the death of the mascot really. But yeah, this has been a pleasant surprise. I don't know whether I can call it one of my favourite games of the year because it is a remaster, but it's one of the games this year that I really just enjoyed because it's pleasant, and there's not enough pleasant in games. And yeah, so this is Spyro Reignited. Like if you like, subscribe if you like it even more, or just, you know, give us a share. But until next time with more video games, thanks for watching. We'll be in the Geek Show, I've been Rob, and we will see you next time. The adventure continues indeed.